My favorite Lee Wiley stuff is with Bunny Berigan, and that was definitely a relation. I guess she broke up Bunny's marriage, I guess. I don't remember all the details, but the way they play together, when Bunny plays behind her, I forget what the tune is now, but it's the closest thing to me of, actual, it's like they're making love.
Yeah.
Not just in the abstract, but in actuality. It's as close as you can come musically, and that, so I had a image of Lee Wiley as, this beautiful woman, but when I finally, when I did get to see her, there was this nice man who had a record label. He recorded Bob Wilbur and Maxine, and he was particularly, he liked Rusty Dedrick, trumpet player. What was his name?
I think the label was Monmouth Evergreen.
Yeah.
And I think his name was Dick Borden.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong.
So he wanted to revive Lee Wiley's record. She hadn't recorded in quite a while. She made very nice records for RCA with Billy Butterfield, and I was doing some Al Cohn arrangements and stuff, and very good still. But by the time he got a hold of her, she was really past her prime. I was at one of the sessions. I wish I hadn't been, because she had turned into a harridan, and she was so nasty to the musicians, and there was a tune, not a very good tune. I would have dropped it if I'd been the A&R person. I would say, let's forget about that and do something else. But she had problems with it, and she blamed everything on the musicians, not on herself. Then George Wein put her on Newport in New York, and she was on with a group that included Teddy Wilson. And they started out, the first song, she was in the wrong key. She started out, so it messed up the start, and she did something which was very much in keeping with what I had seen her do at that session. She turned around and glared at Teddy to make known to the audience that he had started in the wrong key. Teddy was, afterwards, I saw him afterwards, and he was so angry. That bitch. The nerve of her. But anyway, that's where she was at. And I wish I hadn't seen all that, because I would much rather have that image of Lee Wiley as, this great seductive beauty. But as for her singing, I like it. I'm not a huge Lee Wiley fan, but she's very stylized, and I think, a little too. I haven't talked about Lee Wiley with Barbara Rosine, but Barbara has a way. She says that when she dislikes somebody singing, she says they're affected, and that's a pretty good word.
Well, the other singer I wanted to ask you about is, I think, the very opposite of affected. It's Jimmy Rushing.
Jimmy Rushing. Jimmy was such a, he was a natural in a way, but Jimmy was very specific about music and about song. But Jimmy disliked being labeled a blues singer. The blues was something that he did and did very well, but his real love was for songs, what we call the Great American Songbook, and that's what he really liked to do. And of course, when you look at his recordings with Basie, there are quite a number. I mean, he does Pennies from Heaven, he does Exactly Like You, he does, stuff like Don't Beat Around the Mulberg Bush.
He does Boo Hoo.
Yes. You left me crying for you. I know that song because when I was a kid, that was popular in Europe too. He's been doing a associated with Guy Lombardo, but Jimmy could do anything, you know, he turned whatever you gave him, he turned the material into something, which is what Louis could do too. Jimmy had a really wonderful run at the Half Note, which was my favorite New York jazz club of that period. I mean, the Half Note was just special. It had the best food of any jazz club, anytime, anywhere, because it had really originally been a neighborhood Italian restaurant. The two brothers who were jazz fans talked their parents into turning it into a jazz club, and the spaghetti and meatballs so outside, you know, really the best. And it was a really warm place to work, and Alan Zoot worked there a lot. Then it was somebody's really terrific idea to bring Jimmy in to work with them, and he loved it. He really thrived with them, and it was great to see him there. He was a great in-person performer, and my friend Don Schlitten, who produced lots of great jazz recordings, did what really turned out to be Jimmy's, I guess it was his last recording, where he did put him, Al made the arrangements, and it was all, no blues, but it was all, you know, the kind of songs that he liked to do. And I remember I was at one of the sessions, and remember Jimmy walking out of the studio. He did sort of a time step and, you know, waved his hat and, you know, listening to the playback. He was really happy with that session, and that's what he loved to do. Now, he also appears in the only movie, I think, that the great black photographer Gordon Parks directed. I forget the title of it.
The Learning Tree.
The Learning Tree, yes. And his acting is fine there. He's very good. And I could kick myself, but it's not the only time that I didn't do what I should have done. But once at the Half Note, when it was after, you know, afterwards, and Jimmy, I think we were both having dinner or whatever, we were talking, and he felt like talking, and he started reminiscing, and he was talking about the Benny Moten days and stuff, and I should have taped it, you know, because I can't remember very much about it anymore. But Jimmy was a really bright man, and had wonderful recall, and you know, I don't think he was ever interviewed in depth, and it should have been.
I remember being at the Half Note and seeing him. It was magical. It was beyond magical.